So James, let's talk bass.
Okay.
So what was it that drew you to bass in the first place?
I kind of got forced into it, actually, believe it or not. I started out playing drums in, just like garage bands and stuff when I was, I don't know, 13 probably. And absolutely loved the drums, my favourite thing in the world. And I was okay at it, but yeah, Phil Rudd was my hero growing up, AC/DC. So it was just that, four on the floor kind of thing. It was just, I was good at that, but I wasn't any good at anything else like technical or anything like that. Anyway, band in Perth when I was about 16 was looking for I heard that they were looking for a drummer. So I went down for the audition, and the guy that was in there before me, I'd heard him, and he was playing Power and a Passion, Midnight Oil, and he nailed it, all those bits. I could never do that. So I went in there and just played a couple of songs, and they said, "Oh, look, to be honest, we've already found someone." And I was like, "Yeah, I figured." They said, "Can you play bass?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "Oh, why don't you come back next week to audition for the bass?" I'd never picked up a bass before in my life. But one thing I've learned in life is if you get asked to do something, you say yes, and then you learn how to do it after you've said yes. Otherwise, you miss out on opportunities.
Fake it till you make it, right?
Exactly right. So I went away. I'd played guitar, I knew 3 or 4 chords on the guitar. And it kind of made sense to me. Music made sense to me. So, I could kind of hear the notes as I'm looking at them, sort of thing. So anyway, I borrowed a bass and sat around for a week learning AC/DC and Cold Chisel songs. And literally a week later, I went for the audition and I was okay. And they said, "All right, you're in if you want it." I'm like, "Okay." And these guys are all like old enough to be me dad. They would have been probably 10, 15 years older than me, all of them. And so next minute I was a bass player in a band. And it was like, shit, I better start learning stuff. So it gave me like 40 songs to learn. And hardest thing, Midnight Oil, learning Midnight Oil songs. It was like, are you kidding me? Oh, AC/DC is great because it's just you whack it and you feel it and you just go with it. But Midnight Oil, oh crikey, all of that stuff from I used to love playing Hercules because that was more like playing AC/DC. It was like 3 chords in it, but the rest of it's like jeepers. But got there eventually. Just studied hard, played hard, just non-stop playing the bass. But like I say, it made sense. It came to me sort of fairly easily. So faked it till I made it, and rest is history.
And ultimately just self-taught? Did you ever?
Never had lessons. I don't have the patience to sit down and listen to somebody tell me what to do. I've learnt that since I've been married. No, she's all right. We can edit that out, right?
Awesome. So what was your first bass? The one that you went out and, you borrowed one first? And
I can't remember what I borrowed, but the first actual bass that I got was an Ibanez Roadstar. And how I don't know why I did it. I used to love the sound of the low D stuff, and we used to play a lot of songs that were in low D, like Summer of '69 and all that sort of stuff. And so I used to tune my E string down to D. This is before maybe hip shots were invented, or either that or I'd never heard of a hip shot before. So my E string was tuned down to a D, and that's how I learnt all my stuff, playing like that. And it was a pretty horrible bass. I mean, it was how much were they? About $200 or something back in the 80s. So I had that pretty much the whole time, almost. Then I ended up with a Fender Squier bass that had the metallic plate on it. So I thought I looked like Phil Lynott, which ended up either getting nicked or I lost it. I can't remember which. I used it on the, what song did we record? It was an Angel song. We went down to Nowra, down to the airbase, and recorded a couple of tracks down there. And that's the last time I saw it. So got lost somewhere along the way. But had that one for a while as well. But yeah, the old Ibanez Roadstar.
And how many do you own now? Are you an accumulator?
Not really an accumulator, no. I've got, I've got 4 basses floating around now. A couple of them sitting under the bed. Probably haven't seen the light of day for a few years. I've got 2 that I sort of constantly take with me on the road, depending on what show I'm doing and what the show requires.
So tell us about your favourite one.
Favourite one? It's hard to say. At the moment, I've got a Yamaha 5-string that I use quite a lot because it's quite adaptable tone-wise. You know, again, depending on what sort of song you're doing, you can get quite a modern tone. You get that piano, nice big, fat, clean sound out of it, or you can wind the tops off and have that kind of nice little 60s tone with it.
Show us if you want to grab it.
This one here. I've literally just put round wounds on it, but up until about a month ago, I was playing with the flat wounds. But it's nice and light. It's solid. It's reliable. As soon as you plug it in, it's a nice tone straight off the bat. Stays in tune 99.9% of the time. It's well weighted. It's just it's a workhorse, you know. It's something. I say you just pull it out of the case, turn it on, and you're gig ready within 10 seconds, you know. But it's nice to play. Nice spacing. Being a 5-string, you know, can all be slightly different spacing. I like a thinner sort of neck at the back. It's just more comfortable for me to play with. So yeah, I love it. It's yeah.
And you've been playing 5 strings for a long time. You were telling me earlier about taking one off Tom Hamilton, essentially.
Yeah, I had. So I kind of got into the 5-string through watching Jim Hillman playing. I think when they did the Howling tour, which would have been about 80, 87, 86, somewhere around there. And just that low B was like, oh, come on. Does it get any better than that? So kind of, he was the first person I'd really seen or heard playing one. So when we went to the States, Bob and Rick were both endorsees with Paul Reed Smith guitars. I didn't actually go there with a guitar when I went to the States. So the recording itself I did on a 5-string Music Man, which belonged to Terry Manning. The video clip that I did was a loaner from PRS. It was just one of their standard 4-string things. I'm not sure what model it was or anything like that. But while we were there, I sort of spoke about, hey, any chance for an endorsement or something similar, or what can we do? And I really wanted a 5-string, and they hadn't done a 5-string before, so they were doing a prototype model that they were building for Tom Hamilton from Aerosmith. And I kind of put on my puppy face. I had one of those back in the day, you know. And said, look, I need to get one back to Australia. And we were heading back to Australia in about 3 or 4 weeks or something like that. And I think back in those days with the taxes, if you bought a guitar in the States, you had to pay whatever it was worth in tax to bring it back into Australia. So I said, oh, yeah, I'd love to be able to take one back with me so I can avoid all the taxes and all that. And tax department aren't going to see this, are they? And they said, look, we've just about finished making this one for Tom from Aerosmith, but I'll tell you what, we'll give you this one. We'll start making him another one. So I'm like, yeah, that'll be good. So yeah, and still got it. As I say, it's one of the ones that's been sitting under the bed for a few years. It was an active one, and I ended up taking all the active stuff out of it because I preferred the sound passive. But brilliant guitar. That was my road warrior for pretty much most of the time with the Angels for a few years. Yeah.
How did you discover your sound, and did you have to adapt that for the Angels at all?
Look, to be honest, I wasn't great at getting a sound. I'd plug it in and just go, oh, that sounds all right. The guy that I was in the band with in Perth when I was younger, his name was Mel McIntosh. He was a guitarist, and he was really quite particular about his tone and all that sort of stuff. And he had a great ear for it. He was a good engineer, you know. So he actually used to come and get my sound for me when I was sort of just starting out and all that sort of stuff. I had a Berman amp, and it was like a fridge. It was probably the equivalent of an 8x10 Ampeg cab with an SVT1 head, but 3 times heavier somehow. And that was my rig back then. But yeah, we're not having much to play with. The Berman wasn't the best bass amp in the world, and the Ibanez Roadster wasn't the best bass in the world, but somehow he managed to get a semi-decent tone out of it. So I think after a while of playing that, my thing was always SVTs through an 810 cab, which I ended up using 2 810s and an SVT2 for most of the time in the Angels, which the road crew hated me for. And so by the time I joined the Angels, I kind of had that that sound sort of not mastered, but I had a good grasp on what's required for that sort of sound. It was. I mean, I used to start off with the Smiley graphic, which sounded great when you're playing on your own, you know. But as soon as the band kicked in, you just completely lost it. So you end up more of the wanker graphic, what do we call it? bit of the mid-range in there, so you could actually hear what you're playing when the band kicked in. So, and that's something that Bob Spencer always had a good ear for that. So he sort of come over and give me a little bit of a tweak and go try that. It's like, yeah, cool. So,
what makes someone a great bass player?
I wouldn't know. I'm nowhere near there. It's playing to what's required to the song, and I mean everybody's got their own idea of a great bass player. You know, I mean, you know, people that I like, people might hate. So I mean, yeah, it's a tough question, but for me, I think the most part about being a good bass player is just playing what's required. Without sort of interfering with everything else that's going on musically. I mean, sometimes less is more. I think so. Some of the best bass lines are like the verse pattern in Highway to Hell. There isn't any. And it's easy to learn too. Andy Fraser to me is a brilliant player. Got Jamison, who's just like, what the hell? And Cliff, I mean, the subtle little things like Cliff does with AC/DC, the things that I love, is that he's solid as a rock for 3 rounds, and then on the 4th round he'll follow the riff that Malcolm and Angus are doing, just to accentuate it, and then go back to just being solid, with Phil, who's got the best backbeat on the planet, you know. So it's I couldn't say who the greatest player is or what makes a great bass player. It's just collectively what you're doing with everybody else. That's what matters.
And Aussie bass players, who stands out for you?
Paulie. I could talk about Paulie all day, but get a bit emotional.
Yeah.
And it was a close friend, so. But he was one of my favourite players. You know, we were the same age, getting into it at the same time almost. You know, we took them on the road after they'd only been together for like a year, and then their album came out and they started getting big and they started blowing us off stage and all that. But I lived with the boys for a while down in the Cross, and me and Paulie were pretty tight for a long time. Yeah.
Such a voice as well.
Yeah. Oh, great songwriter, great singer, great bass player. Yeah, I remember doing a gig, was it St George Lee's Club, would have been 90, 91, something like that, and they were doing the support. And I remember going out, watching them out the front, thinking, fuck, they're going to blow us off stage. And they did. They just, the energy, and they were so tight by that stage, they were just doing gig after gig after gig after gig. And the band was playing like motherfuckers. And Brad Heaney's on the drums, and he's unique. Paulie's just doing his thing. And it was like, fuck, they've taken the mantle as the new two-guitar rock and roll band around town, you know, so...
And I mean, Chris Bailey obviously was massive in the Angels.
Absolutely. I mean, that sound, like again, very similar to sort of thing with Cliff. AC/DC, slightly different player though. Chris was a very fluid player. You know, he effortlessly went from down here to up here, and it was just like you couldn't hear anything in between. Just this silky smooth run. But I think that's a very Aussie kind of thing. You know, there's something about Australian rock players that have an ease about them that it's hard and it's solid, but it's smooth at the same time, and that's something that I think is unique to Australians. You know?
What's your most pinch yourself, I can't bloody believe this is happening moment? I guess being on a plane to Memphis soon after auditioning would be pretty huge. And I know you've shared a urinal with Cliff Williams.
Yeah, it was uncomfortable.
What else comes to mind?
I don't really get starstruck or anything like that. So there's been some cool things that happen where I can sort of look back and be proud of. I mean, when we did the Newcastle show, Gary Beers came up to me after the Angels set and said, "Man, I haven't seen anybody rock a bass like that for a long time." And I'm like, "Wow, that's coming from him." And I was a kid, so it's it's nice for the ego to hear something like that. But thinking back on it, it's like, wow, that's really cool. I think hanging out with Malcolm Young and having some chats with him is probably, a massive.
Yeah, that's huge. The GOAT, as we said before,
Yeah.
he's the GOAT. So, and after the Angels, you've played with a lot of different people, choir boys, Richard Clapton, John English. What's any other favourite memories from those times?
I was always a massive choir boys fan when I was a kid. So that the early band that I was playing with when I was touring when I was 16 or whatever, our front of house guy used to tune the PA with the first Choir Boys album. So I'd hear that album non-stop, and that is hands down one of my favourite top 10 rock albums ever. It's such a good album. The guitarist on that, I mean, Ian's a wonderful bass player. Love his bass playing. But Brad Carr, the guitarist, just ahead of his time. It was just an absolute virtuoso. Some of the guitar solos on that first Choir Boys album are just like, what? So yeah, play, and I still occasionally play with those guys, rhythm guitar normally, and so that's always a buzz for me. Like I said, because I've loved those guys since I was a kid. John English was just just a funny bugger, and so him on stage, the way he grabbed an audience, the stories, he could take people on a journey with a story. The story could go for half an hour, but you could still hear a pin drop or people laughing their asses off because he just was a storyteller, it was so cool. Only played with Richard Clapton a few times over in Perth as part of a tour he did over there, but I mean, wow, one of the most iconic songwriters in Australian history. What a songwriter. The songs are just unbelievable, So, look, I think everybody that I've gotten to play with has been somebody that I've looked up to when I was younger. And it's like, playing there, looking over and playing with them, it's like, cool! So, yeah, it's a buzz.
Living the dream. That's it. How about aspiring bass players? What advice would you give to someone who's starting out?
Don't do it.
Play guitar instead?
Don't get married. No, she's all right. Play with people that you want to play with and play stuff that you want to play, because that's what's going to make you happy. Otherwise, you're going to get disillusioned and it's all going to be too hard and all that sort of stuff. So I think it's don't do gigs for the sake of doing gigs. With like I say, playing stuff that you don't particularly want to play, because it's going to sap you of your will to live, but your will to play. You got to enjoy it. You have to enjoy it, and you've got to enjoy the people that you play with, because that's there's nothing better when you get that combination. So as much as you possibly can, make sure that happens. I understand that's when you're starting out and you're with your first band, it's all like you're learning, you're not sure what's what, and you've got to go through that teething aspect to start off with. But once you sort of get in there and get your teeth into it, just make sure you love what you're doing.
Awesome. James Morley, it's been fantastic chatting with you on the Bass channel. Thank you so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.